Tenses. Past perfect tense. Had plus verb 3. Outcomes. 1. To practice past perfect, affirmative, negative, interrogative correctly. 2. To add had plus verb 3 with subjects correctly. The timeline. Put these tenses in the correct place on the timeline: future, present, and past. We use the past to talk about things that happened and finished. We use the present to talk about things that happened at present. We use the future to talk about things that will happen in the future. The timeline of past perfect tense. The past perfect tense, also called the pluperfect, is a verb tense used to talk about actions that were completed before some point in the past. The use of the past perfect tense. We use the past perfect tense to talk about completed action before something in the past. Example: I had never seen such a beautiful beach before I went to Kauai. Also, we use the past perfect tense to talk about the duration before something in the past, non-continuous verbs. For example, we had had that car for 10 years before it broke down. Explanation. 1. Completed action before something in the past means that the past perfect expresses the idea that something occurred before another action in the past. It can also show that something happened before a specific time in the past. Examples: I had never seen such a beautiful beach before I went to Kauai. I did not have any money because I had lost my wallet. Tony knew Istanbul so well because he had visited the city several times. 2. Duration before something in the past, non-continuous verbs. We mean with non-continuous verbs and some non-continuous uses of mixed verbs. We use the past perfect to show that something started in the past and continued up until another action in the past. Examples: we had had that car for 10 years before it broke down. By the time Alex finished his studies, he had been in London for over 8 years. They felt bad about selling the house because they had owned it for more than 40 years. Explanation. Although the above use of past perfect is normally limited to non-continuous verbs and non-continuous uses of mixed verbs, the words live, work, teach, and study are sometimes used in this way, even though they are not non-continuous verbs. Important: specific times with the past perfect. Unlike with the present perfect, it is possible to use specific time words or phrases with the past perfect. Although this is possible, it is usually not necessary. Example: she had visited her Japanese relatives once in 1993 before she moved in with them in 1996. Note: if the past perfect action did occur at a specific time, the simple past can be used instead of the past perfect when before or after is used in the sentence. The words before and after actually tell you what happens first, so the past perfect is optional. For this reason, both sentences below are correct. Example: she had visited her Japanese relatives once in 1993 before she moved in with them in 1996. She visited her Japanese relatives once in 1993 before she moved in with them in 1996. If the past past perfect is not referring to an action at a specific time. Past perfect is not optional. Compare the examples below. Here, past perfect is referring to a lack of experience rather than an action at a specific time. For this reason, simple past cannot be used. Example: she never saw a bear before she moved to Alaska. Not correct. She had never seen a bear before she moved to Alaska. Correct. Expressions: by time, by the time, before, after, when, as soon as, till. Affirmative form: he, she, and it, plus had plus verb 3. Example: he had worked. I plus had plus verb 3. Example: I had worked. We, they, and you, plus had plus verb 3. Example: you had worked. Examples: Julie didn't arrive until after I had left. When we had finished dinner, we went out. He had met her somewhere before. She told me she had studied a lot before the exam. Write the correct form of the verb. 1. I breakfast when he arrived. Correct answer is I had had breakfast when he arrived. 2. He emailed before, so he got the job easily. He had used email before, so he got the job easily. 3. The garden was dead because it dry all summer. Correct answer is the garden was dead because it had been dry all summer. Negative form: he, she, and it, plus had, plus not, plus verb 3. Example: he had not worked. I plus had plus not plus verb 3. Example: I had not worked. We, they, and you, plus had plus not plus verb 3. Example: you had not worked. Examples: he hadn't lived in Irbid before. I hadn't played tennis. You hadn't studied English after Sunday. When it hadn't rained, we went out. Write the correct form of the verb. 1. She the dishes after that. Correct answer is she hadn't washed the dishes after that. 2. We to the UAE before this. Correct answer is we hadn't traveled to the UAE before this. 3. I fish before you came. Correct answer is I hadn't cooked fish before you came. Interrogative form: had plus he, she, or it plus verb 3 plus question mark. Had plus you, they, we, and I plus verb 3 plus question mark. Examples: had he played chess? Yes, he had. No, he hadn't. Had they eaten fish before? Yes, they had. No, they hadn't. Had I lived in Amman after 2015? Yes, I had. No, I hadn't. Write the correct form of the verb. 1. Had she washed the dishes? 2. Had they painted the wall before? 3. Had you walked to school